to go when you are, Jim. We're all
Okay, we're back to the public portion of our meeting. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with a resolution that we passed at
Karen,
6 o'clock or 6:15 this
the
evening
toolbar, did you put that on?
that suspends the provisions of board policies regarding public attendance at meetings, video conferencing, and public participation in meetings.
It's not important, forget
And
it.
this extends this extends until the state of emergency no longer exists in New York State due to COVID-19.
It's the bottom button, Mr. Shaughnessy, not the top one.
This one?
Yeah, that one says push. There you go.
I always thought it was that one. We've only been using this for 6 years or so. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the March 18th, 2020 board meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes? And a second? Are there any corrections or discussions about any items? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of March 18th, 2020, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, it's unanimously adopted, or unanimously approved. And now we have the superintendent's report. Update on school closings is the first topic.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I know most of you have been reading my every other day or so, or depending on the day, sometimes it's every day, recaps of what's happened during the day. If you don't get them, that means we've been lucky enough that nothing really changed too much, but just to kind of give you some overview as of today, and some of this is repeating things you've already read, but the public hasn't heard it, so this is a report to everyone. Schools now, according to the governor, we are closed until April 29th. Starting session again on April 30th. Again, is that positive? Are we sure about that? No, we don't know. We won't know until the governor tells us. He could extend us again. He extended us from the 15th to the 29th, so it could be another extension. And we'll wait and see what that is. So what we're doing is we're going forward with our instructional plan. We're going forward with our food service plans. We're going forward with everything that we're going to do with the hope that we will be back on the 30th, but prepare for the possibility that we won't be back on the 3rd. Regents exams have been canceled. We are graduation and promotion information is in our hands now from the State Education Department. We are preparing a document for parents, students, and the public to let them know what the new regulations are around graduation. So if I was to tell you this just in a nutshell, if a student receives credit for a class that usually would need a Regents exam to exit, they will get credit for the class towards graduation. So any upcoming Regents exams will be waived, and the students will be given the grade that they'll be given locally. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but I'll have much more detailed description out in writing to parents and to all of you. I know Teaching and Learning is working on it. It'll probably be done, probably Friday. Online and distance learning moving forward. As I told you before, we distributed about 1,500 pieces of technology, Chromebooks, some keyboards, different things that we give out for students to work with. We have made hotspots near several of our schools, thanks to our tech department, expanding our ability to put our kind of Wi-Fi out there. So surrounding GW, JFK, and Edson, where we focused on this. And if you look on the website, there's a map, kind of tells you where you can go. It doesn't go really way that far outside of there, but people can come into that zone and use the Wi-Fi if they wanted to. We did establish, I'm sorry, let me keep going a minute. So we have Teams we're using, as we're using here tonight. Our teachers are using Teams. I've been lucky enough to be able to see some things that are going on, and the kids and the teachers are doing a lot better than we did today, but we're doing pretty well with Teams. There's a help document and a video posted on our website, and we have created 2 hotlines, one in English, one in Spanish, for parents to call and ask questions. Our second hotline is being manned by our bilingual family workers, and they're retrieving messages and making phone calls back and answering parents who have questions about anything to do with Teams, and really anything. They could really ask any question they wanted at that time. We have set up our social emotional learning website, and we have our daily memes. If you watch on the website every day, you'll see we have a new meme from David Levine, and then you can click on it and there's a small lesson. Our food service, as of today, we've distributed approximately 8,000 meals to students. We have a flyer. We have a new flyer going out this week. We are going in English and in Spanish that we are going to get either delivered or mailed to houses as quickly as possible. And we are going to open 3 new sites. So we will have a total of 9 sites for food distribution. We're also creating a hotline. So we're going to have a hotline so parents who are in an emergency need can call, and we can then find a way to get them, whether it be from us or from one of the community partners. Let them know that if it's a time that we don't have somebody, or we're in a certain situation, maybe we could reach out to someone else. But we're going to set up that hotline. We get that call. We have 3 school cars that we can use. We're going to reach out to people who are resources in here to get in that car and maybe to make a couple of deliveries if necessary. So some things we're expanding and evolving with our food service program as we move forward. And it was one thing to start the food service program when we were going to be out for a week or 2 weeks even, and one of those was spring break. It's another now we're looking at, okay, we're talking about we got a whole full month and possibly longer. So we're evolving and developing our protocols and really building our capacity. Because at the end of the day, we only have so many food service workers. Some of them are unable to come to work, and so we have to, and we've really changed the way we're not a to-go facility. We are a hot lunch serve facility in a cafeteria style. So they really have to change what they do and how they do it into a bag lunch to go kind of a system. So we're getting a little better, and we're going to expand and expand and expand, and hopefully be able to serve as many students as we possibly can in the time that we have. So, we continue to ask parents to make sure that their students are, and I'm going to kind of put this out there for anyone who's watching, to ensure that their students are logging on every day, checking their emails and checking Teams. There's actually been a question asked recently that is school optional during this time? And the answer is no. School is not optional during this time. The school is in session, and we need some help from parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and to inform, let students know you're supposed to be going to school, you're supposed to be logging on Teams. If you have a problem, you need to contact your building level people, your building principal, if you have a problem with technology, or you have a problem with availability of technology, or you need something, we need to know. Don't just say, I'm not doing school until they bring me back. Lastly, as far as around school closings, as you all know, we're cooperating with the county on the Surge Hospital at Kingston High School. I sent you all a photograph today. I don't know how many of you saw it, but there are, at about 1 o'clock, there are about 50 beds up in Cape Walton Fieldhouse. My guess is by now that probably all 100 beds will be there. So, again, as the county executive has said, we hope we never have to use it, but it's there if the situation arises, and it will be there for a few weeks while we wait for a more permanent facility to be developed, or to be more developed at the IBM plant. So we're continuing forward with that. And it's interesting to watch our gymnasium transfer into a field hospital. Something I never thought I'd see, and I hope I never see again. Any questions on that before I switch to budget?
I have a question on the Chromebooks. We have you said 1,500, 1,300 or something like
Yeah,
that?
we've distributed to students somewhere in the 1,300, but we also have distributed extras to the buildings, extra to our bilingual family workers. So there's people with some access, and actually, if you look out here, there's 10 or so sitting there, so we're there to, so we have some extras to give, and also some extras to use to replace should something get broken or need to be repaired.
Okay. So a couple people have talked to me about the situation with Spectrum, who several weeks ago, they announced that they would provide free internet service to families that didn't have it and had children in schools, and they would waive the setup charge. But what I've heard is there are strings attached to it. It's only for, the free period is only 2 months, and they're refusing to, and if you don't have any cable service with them, they require a credit card, so if it extends beyond 2 months, then they would start charging you. And if you do have existing cable service, if you have any past due balances, you have to pay those balances before they'll provide the cable modem. So they're not as magnanimous as they wanted to have people believe they were being. And, so I think that's going to have some repercussions if this extends for 2 months or any longer than that, because my question to Dr. Padalino, I think, is it has to do with is student attendance, is online attendance, is it really school? Is it voluntary? No, it's not voluntary, and we're a public school, and we can't compel our students to pay for their own textbooks or desks or anything like that. And if we are requiring them to participate in an online teaching environment, and their family can't afford internet service, will the school district have to provide it for them? So that's something that is hanging out there and is going to come up at some point, I think.
Well, that's definitely hanging out there for sure. I mean, again, giving the technology is one thing, expanding some of our hotspots is another, but looking at the school district providing, broadband Wi-Fi service for everyone in the 100 square miles of Kingston, including some of our far-reaching areas, would be a huge challenge for us. And that's why it's one of the huge hurdles about what we're doing. Our job is to find out, where those issues are and what different alternative we can do to continue to provide, a public education to students. Nowhere in this closure is there a mandate that says you have to do online learning. It just says you have to provide education. So if we had to get creative again and kind of regenerate what we're doing, which we are going, there is kind of a two different modes going here. There are some areas where it is a more paper and pencil kind of thing, and there's areas where there's lessons. So it's a challenge. We've been asked to change the way we've delivered education for hundreds of years in the United States, and we've been asked to do it, told to do it, in 2 days. So I think we've mobilized pretty well. I think we've done a lot of work. I think there are a lot of students logging on and taking classes, and a lot of parents asking questions, a lot of people who are involved. I want to see more. I know we are, I wouldn't say we're at, 85% attendance where we are, our usual school day, but we need to find a way to get up there. But yeah, this is a huge challenge to undertake in such a short period of time. With probably 85% of our workforce at home.
Yeah.
Dr. Jacobowitz has a question.
Dr. Jacobowitz?
You have a question? Yeah, yes, there's a lot to say about that. With having 4 kids at home and kind of seeing this online and this distance learning, I can see just what tremendous effort is being put into it, and just how much energy and thought and creativity is being put in by the teachers, and then also how much energy and patience it takes on the other side from families to be able to engage. So it's really complicated, and you're right, it's hard, and I do think everyone's doing the best they can. And I hope that as we continue with this, and hoping we don't go past April 30th, but that we will continue to find ways to reach those kids who aren't logging on for whatever reason, and try to engage them and bring them in. But my question really was about school meals, and there again, we've done a huge turnaround really quickly, as you said, Dr. Padalino, going from a hot meal service to bag lunch. I mean, I'm sure we didn't even have enough, materials to do that. We had to, I'm sure, scramble to get those. I know that some districts are actually delivering meals by their bus systems or other systems that they're using, and I'm wondering if that's in the works or in the plan at any point to get more food out to more people who might not be able to come to these 9 sites.
Well, I think, anything's possible. I want to remind everyone that we have more students on free and reduced lunch than every other district in Ulster County has students. We have more students in Kingston High School than every other district in Ulster County has students. So when Auntie Aura is delivering to their students door to door, they're delivering to far fewer students than the Kingston City School District is delivering, would be delivering, in a much different manner. Also, the idea of using buses, we don't own buses. The districts who are doing those, a lot of that own their own buses, so we don't own buses. We do own vans, we do own some cars, so we're going to make adjustments. I think now looking at 9 distribution sites and a hotline for people who are in an emergency situation will put us within blocks of almost every home in our district as best as we can. Again, 100 square miles. So it's a work in progress. We're evolving. I don't think it's out of the question. We just have to figure out how that would happen. And again, remind you that our food service people, we're working with 25%. They're home. People are home. People have been ordered to stay home. Essential businesses, even then, we're a certain number of our people are to be home. So it's a struggle, and we're going to keep working on it, and we'll get better at it. I think we're going to get better at it just next week with a hotline, with more communication, and with with a new location, with a few new locations.
Thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions, Dr. Bennett?
Oh,
Sure.
Charles is on.
Yeah, he got back on.
Well, one of the things that I didn't hear what you said the attendance looks like, but I've talked to some parents, and for example, getting on this thing tonight to be in this meeting is difficult for most of us. And when I talk to some of the parents, they have no clue. And the only thing that's helping their children is that their children have learned how to use technology in school, but they have no clue. So they're really no help. And so if the child, if some of the children don't do what they're supposed to do because they want to, it's not getting done. So I'm just curious as to how many kids are not signing on doing anything. Because many of the parents that I have talked to, some of them are even grandparents, have technology is a foreign language to them, and they can't assist or help their children. So I'm just curious as to how many children are being added on.
One of the, and to be honest with you, I can't quantify that for you right at this moment. But one of the guidelines that our principals are delivering to our teachers, along that we've developed district-wide, is if you see students on your class list who you are not seeing, you need to pick up the phone. You need to call their guide, and they're not getting calls home, you need to call the guidance counselor, you need to call social workers, and do the same thing we would do if they didn't show up to school for 3 or 4 days. We'll go knock on doors. We gotta make the phone calls, we gotta make those, connections and get students up and on board and let parents know that we're here. As far as doing their work and making sure they're up to speed, same thing. If a student is not doing their work, not up to speed, our teachers are going to call. They're going to reach out. They're going to use the resources that we have to communicate with families to say, hold it, John's failing right now, or John's falling behind in his work right now. So we're, Some of those systems are the same. You know, we should treat them the same way. If you don't see students, we need to find out why, and that is kind of in our guidance document to our teachers. And if they're not doing well, you need to contact parents just like you would if they were sitting in front of you in class. We do have, but for some parents who can't get on or having some issues, again, we have tutoring video and like a sheet there to look at. We also are putting frequently asked questions up on the website. They're being developed now. They probably will be up in a couple of days. I know Ms. Siri is integral in making that happen, so she's sitting there nodding her head, so I know that they're going to be ready. So we'll have some FAQs for parents from things that we've been hearing, feedback we've been getting. So people can, most of the time when people have a question about something, 20 other people, 30 other people, 100 other people have that question. So we're able to wrap those up and put them in one list. It's easy for people to go look at and say, oh, this is why I can't get on Teams, or this is who I call if I don't understand why my son's not doing any work at home, those kind of things.
Okay, thank you.
Will those FAQs be available on paper to families that need it?
Yeah, we can make everything available on paper. It's just getting it. You know, it's just
Right.
those things. One of the problems is paper is slow. You know, and we've learned that to get something made to the printer, to the mass mailing that we have to go through the post office, and then the parents' sends, takes us 5 to 7 days. So that's slow. And a lot of people ask about report cards. And people say, oh, this market period ended 10 days ago, I still have my report card. That's why. Because to mass mail is slow and expensive, so we try to do everything we can as quickly as we can in different ways. But yeah, we can mail things.
We get a request.
Yeah, and
I have a question, I think, Chair.
so,
I've heard from several parents, they're very concerned about the grading of the students, and at the end of the year, what's gonna happen?
yeah, we all are. We've decided at least for the third marking period, we're coming back on the 29th supposedly. So as for the third marking period, we were going to stay with our regular grading procedures. We did extend the marking period to give teachers more opportunities to get more grades in and those kind of things. We've also, listen, our teachers are going to do the right thing. They know how to deal with the issues that we have at hand and how not to grade in a way that isn't going to be damaging to a student in a time like this. I think that we have some guidelines in place, like we always do, around grading, and we're going to stick to our current grading system for now, for the third market period. If we're going into the fourth market period, I think we're going to have to have another conversation with, I'll have a conversation with the teaching and learning team, conversation with our teachers and our building principals to see what their recommendations are moving forward. The thing is, I guess one of our biggest concerns is we're going to come out of this. So this is going to end, and we're going to go back to how we used to do things. And if we have these huge gaps of doing things so differently, trying to marry those in the end is going to be very difficult. So, from now to the 29th, or this marking period, as I say, the rest of this marking period, we're going to be using the old grading system, but I know there is some conversation around, do we need to change that? I think at the elementary level, we're pretty clean. We can grade students on the skills and the standards that they're being taught. We're not looking at averages like we are at the high school, where if you don't have enough grades, one grade could sink you, or one grade could make you the valedictorian. So there's a lot of discussion going on around about that. But the third market period, we've made the decision that we would stay with our current grading system and our current report card system.
Jim,
Yes.
also, we had crash and burn with the teams today, and I gotta tell you, technology, the minute you called, they had us up and running for steps lessons. So if we made that technology number a little more easy to find for some parents, it will help.
We can do that. Okay.
Has there been any conversation about graduation?
No, actually, I had my first conversation about graduation today. Ms. Bonville asked me, are we going to have graduation? Well, first she asked me, are we going to have May Day? And then she asked me, are we going to have graduation? And I didn't answer either of those questions because I don't know. I think, I don't want to make any big announcements because this is not written in stone or anything, but coming back on, the 30th doesn't look like our people will have time to plan the usual May Day celebration. Does that mean we postpone it? Does that mean we cancel it? I don't know. I'd have to talk to the class advisors and Ms. Skorka, who's the assistant principal in charge of that grade, and the seniors this year. So I don't want to make any statement of that. And as far as graduation, again, I just don't know. We come back to school on the 30th, obviously we're going to have graduation.
Right.
But if we don't, I think a lot of things are in doubt for a lot of people, but we don't know.
Okay, any other questions on the school closing and the impact of the COVID-19 epidemic? Okay.
Just to end on that, and I say it everywhere. I've said it, to all of you, privately. I do want to thank everyone who's done all this work. Our teachers are learning new things and doing things differently and committing so much time and effort to this. Collaborating, cooperating. I talk to Ms. Nacarado basically every day. She's telling me things that she's hearing. We're trying to work things through, and there's a lot. When there's a lot of devil in the details that I think that escape people, that we try to work through and make sure that things work properly here in our schools. And I'm thankful to have a good partner like Ms. Nacarado and the teachers to be working the way they are, and just everybody else. I think Mr. Lamb just mentioned the tech guys. They're doing a great job. Our custodians and maintenance people continue to do a great job. Our building administrators are in their buildings helping teachers, doing what they need to do. Our food service people are, putting themselves on the line out there every day, handing out lunches, making sure kids have food. So we've got so many people doing a lot of work. Miss Siri, who's sitting right here, she and Miss Schufelt are pumping things out and make sure people get the information as fast as we can get it to them. And the central office here, you're just trying to steer the ship. So I appreciate everybody's work and everything everyone's doing. So I can't say that enough. I know I've said it to you as the board many times, but I don't think I can say it enough. So second thing on the superintendent's report is the budget. I do want to say there's a lot up in the air. This is usually the time where I'd be presenting a full budget to you, and on the 22nd you'd be voting to adopt that budget. This is a very different year, obviously. And I did send a couple emails out about the budget today. You do have a cover sheet in your packet, which really is just a very generalized thing, and you can see based on the state aid that we received, our current budget gap now is about $3.6 million. If you remember, we closed it down to about 2.3. This new work has put it back up to about $3.6 million. We really didn't receive any new money. We did receive about $1 million in community schools money. A big portion of that is used to continue programs we've put in the past, so that's already part of our operating budget. And then we have a small amount of that that's allowed to start new programs that are prescribed through the community schools plan that's put out by the state. So that's not real new money. We have about $300,000 in other new money coming from this budget. The trick to this is we don't know if that's real. So on May 1st, April 30th, the budget director will take basically a look back on the state revenues, and they'll make a decision at that time whether or not this money is actually coming in or they're going to have to reduce it. So we don't really know. Right now we're operating on the idea that we have about a $3.6 million budget gap to fill. It might be more, it might be the same. It's not going to be less. We've got some ideas. Our main goal is to make this as painless as possible to our students, to their programming, and painless as possible to our faculty and staff. We don't want to be part of the unemployment craziness that's going on. We do not want to have people lose their jobs, so we're working hard to figure out how we can do that. And we want to be fair to the community. Obviously, we're going to stay at or below the tax levy limit. We've never pierced the limit. We've always been at or below, and we'll continue to do that. So we're still working on it, and I think, like I said to the board, in writing a couple of times, I think we need to take a hard, long look at our reserves and how maybe we can allocate our reserves. I mean, some of our, we look at our fund balance that we keep, our 4% fund balance that we keep, and we always talk about that's a rainy day fund. Well, I gotta say, it's raining. So we may want to look at allocating some of that money so we can continue our programs and keep our people. But I'll have, on the 22nd, I think I'll have a much better picture and a much more detail to discuss with you. Our budget vote and our board election, at this point, we've been told it will be at the earliest June 1st. That doesn't mean it's June 1st, that means it's at the earliest June 1st. We're still up in the air on that. We don't know. The governor will tell us when it's time, when he's ready to tell us when that will be or how that will take place. We don't know at this point. We also are really concerned because that puts us in a situation where we're up against the primaries and the voting machines become an issue again. An issue that we solved 3 months ago for May is now bringing results back up, because if we're looking at June, now we're going to have problems obtaining voting machines because the county's going to need them for the other elections. So these are all things that get lost in a lot of the big picture stuff that we're talking about, but these are the things that we've got to really start focusing on and thinking about how we're going to manage an election second week of June, first week of June, if it is a real election in that way without voting machines. And it's something for us to start thinking about, and I know Mr. Perna thinks about it every day. So that means I think about it every day because she tells me every day. But that's what we're doing, and those are things we're working on. So we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. We know where we are. We know where we want to be. We just have to figure out how we're going to get there.
Dr. Paolino, as far as you know, can the governor move those elections to, say, September?
As far as I know, yes. I think the governor at this point, if we look at the executive, directives that have been given out, it seems to me the governor can, in this state of emergency, in this situation, he can do anything of that nature. And I know there's, a lot of different things he could do. So yes, he could.
Dr. Paolino, I did try to call Kevin Cahill today. I didn't get the call back, but I had that conversation with you about the thought I had of asking the governor to declare some kind of a freeze so that we could keep our tax cap for the formulation going forward after the crisis at what it was last year. Because it seems to me that if we go to 0 or below, that carries forward in the negative for us when we recover. And it's going to affect our ability to raise taxes in the future. But if they would put a freeze on that percentage now, then it would give school districts a motivation to keep at a 0% increase or less, because that will affect us going forward. So I was going to pitch that. I spoke to Dr. Paolino about that before I went ahead to contact Kevin. But I really do think that all the school districts in the state would benefit from that, and it's a reasonable accommodation. Because otherwise you really don't have a motivation to help the taxpayers now, because it's going to hurt us in the future. But if it stays at, it would then stay at the 1920, no, the 1890, right?
1920.
1920. So whatever our tax cap was, no, for last year's calculation, we can't use that same one. Because going forward, if we have 0 this year, is that the 1920 calculation?
No, if we had the 0 on 2021, so we're looking at next year's, what you're saying is if we were into a 0 tax levy limit, if we would be allowed to then, recoup that 1.75 somehow, on the other end of it, and there is a mechanism for that in the law, very rarely used mechanism where you used to be able to kind of save up the money or save up the percentages that you used to have at your tax cap and add that to your tax cap the next year. And I think that's kind of the philosophy you are coming up with. So, yeah, and so that mechanism. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to hear what Assemblyman Cahill would say about something like that.
So just, Mrs. Jordan, so your question seemed to imply that we might not have a tax increase this year? I haven't heard that. Is that?
That is not something we have on the table. That's something that Ms. Jordan brought up, just thinking about the taxpayers and thinking about but you know, we're developing a budget.
We have huge numbers of people in our community who have lost their jobs, and I just don't think it's reasonable to expect that we can raise taxes this year with any good conscience. I mean, it's just unfair, but it's also unfair for school districts to make that sacrifice now, as everybody is sacrificing now, and then have to carry that going forward. That doesn't seem reasonable.
Just to give you kind of
We have to look.
just to give you an idea what that would mean, that would probably mean that $3.6 million hole turns into close to a $5 million hole. If we went to a zero tax levy limit.
And this,
I think we have to look at the reality. We'd have to look into how many of our families are unemployed right now. You know, that probably could be figured out, because they're all making unemployment, requests. But I just think that it's, very, very difficult to ask people who are suffering right now to add to that group. So I think the cuts are going to have to be very close to the bone, as you've said in the past, with a scalpel. Hopefully not a chainsaw, but I think we cannot afford to ask our community to, for all of the working people in our community to take suck it up, and then for the school district to just go on as though it's nothing.
Well, I always tell my cabinet that in cases like this, they're the scalpel, and just find ways to get close to the bone, because I'm the broadsword and I'm the one who makes the bigger things. So I let them do that, and they are working on that now.
Can I ask a question about that also?
Mr. Lamb?
With us in the situation we are in, is it unreasonable to ask our marketing units and our employees to not take an increase this year and extend the contract 1 year and give them their increases later, and that would be a give back to the community and help our budget? I don't know what our increase is total funding wise.
I mean, I think that's always a possibility and an option. That's an option I do hold for a while before I would do it, and I'd like to be towards the end of our process before I would make that kind of a request and make those meetings.
As part of our, one of the standard resolutions that we passed in the last meeting in August is the tax warrants. And there's always part of that resolution that has to do with the fund balance and how we allocate that fund balance. Would it be possible could you ask the business office if they could do a pro forma of that before we pass the budget? So it would require that they come up with some projection of what the fund balance will be as of June 30th, July 1st, and then also where would we put that money, or where would we take money from our reserve funds in order to balance our budget?
Yeah, I can ask that, and I ask that all the time. Ms. Woodard likes to not tell me that, but I do ask her. But I think one of the other things to keep in mind here is allocation of fund balance or allocation of money out of reserves artificially inflates our revenues. So the more we artificially inflate our revenues, the more we have to either artificially inflate our revenues next year, which becomes that whole spiraling down of your reserves, or raise taxes or cut expenses to meet that. So artificially raising our revenues using a huge amount of fund balance can set us into a problem next year at this time. Now that's, again, I as I said before, it's a rainy day fund and it's raining. I think we just need to make sure we're aware of that. It won't, our revenues, whatever we raise them to, that's what they are next year. Yeah, and so that we either have to, artificially increase those revenues or have those revenues strangely jump up because we got more state aid, which I don't think we're going to see that for several years now, or we have to reduce our expenditures so we don't end up in that place. So that's one of the games about this. It's not really a year-to-year budget. This is every year compounds on the next one. Going back to kind of what Mrs. Jordan said about the tax cap, every year compounds on the next one. If you pass up your 1.75 tax levy limit increase, the next year that's 1.75 of that number, that you don't have, that you would be able to increase it from. So, like I said, we're continuing to work on it. We'll have scenarios as we do every year. Still unsure when the vote will be, but we will continue to work on this, and we are kind of holding back a little bit, waiting for that look back period to make sure that our revenues really are what our revenues are said to be. But we'll keep you posted on the 22nd. I'll have more.
One of the provisions in the budget that was passed, with the budget office authorized to look at revenues every quarter. The governor explained it in one of his press conferences that if the revenues for a quarter were more than or less than 90% of the projected revenue for that quarter, then there could be reductions in state aid to not only school districts, but to all the various programs. So even with the state aid being flat right now, in 3 weeks, we may find that it's a little bit of a depression.
And as much as we are unhappy that our aid is flat, I think education is the only part of the budget that is flat, that did not see a decrease. So the effort was there to get us everything that they could get us. We're also hopeful maybe there's some money in the second stimulus package for states to help schools with. So we'll wait and see on that as well.
Okay.
Okay. That is it for me tonight.
Any questions? Well, one thing I would like to say is I would like to take the opportunity to, I think a few of the board members expressed this later or earlier, but I really want to congratulate Dr. Petalino and the cabinet and the staff, including administrators, teachers, everyone who's working on this really diligently the last 3.5 weeks. It's really an outstanding job that's been done, and we're fortunate that, as board members, we're fortunate that we have the administration and faculty and staff that we do have. Kudos. Okay. So we have two committee reports on the agenda for Board of Education: the Audit and Finance Committee, which didn't meet, and the Policy Committee didn't meet. But there is a...
We did one resolution.
Okay. So, and there's 2 resolutions for the Audit and Finance Committee. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Michael first.
Thank you, Mr. Shaughnessy. We didn't have our meeting this month, and we postponed it until later this month. But I have 2 resolutions I would like the board to approve. One is the DOA 55, the claims and auditor's report. for the month of February, and also BOE 56, the treasurer's report for the month of February 2020. So I would like to move both the resolutions as one.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? So this is, so the question before the board now is approving resolutions BOE 55 and BOE 56. So if there's no discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I think that was everyone. Opposed, please say no. Okay, unanimously adopted. And is that your, so, do you have any idea when your next Audit and Finance Committee meeting will be, Mr. Michael?
Well, I will expect the business office and Dr. Padagil will have a meeting finalize the budget. As you know, all the bids have been here yet. So as soon as we get the final numbers are in, and then we call an emergency meeting as a finance committee and approve the budget and tax levy. So I want to advance something, whatever Dr. Madalino was trying to say before about the reserve funds. We can understand that it's okay now on a rainy day to use some of these reserve funds. But also we cannot deplete the fund because that would be disadvantage for the following years.
Right.
So I hope the taxpayers understand that.
Yes. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Michael? We'll move on to the Policy Committee. Mrs. Jordan?
The policy committee also canceled its meeting due to the COVID crisis, but we plan on meeting hopefully May 1st at 9:30. We do have a policy that was reviewed last time for the second meeting, so I'm going to read that. The file attachment has shown you that policy in red. It was highlighted. The language that was added was really added just to comply with red flag law. Whereas the Kingston City School District is contracted with Nice Vista as consultants to the Board of Education for the review, amendment, and adoption of its policy manual. And whereas the subcommittee of the board consultation with Vista and legal counsel has prepared the following policies for amendment and or adoption. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the following amended policy. Safety, 8130 school safety plans and teams.
Can I have a motion?
Bad reading, I was trying to scan
Okay.
it on my phone.
A motion for adoption?
So moved.
And second? Okay, moved and second. Any discussion?
There's another part of this that will be part of the code of conduct, but we will discuss that in another meeting.
Yes. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Unanimously adopted. Old business is the next item on the agenda. There's none listed. Does anyone have old business they would like to bring up?
I don't know if it should be old business or new business. I think Mr. Michaels have also brought it up, but we mentioned it in one of the meetings about naming the court for G. Warren Caius, and I don't know where that should go, whether it should be new business or old business, but I really think that is something I would like to see done. And I've gotten several calls from people who are interested because he had such a great career here in Kingston. I think about 36 years. I guess I personally think about him. I remember I was in high school. He encouraged me not only to run track but cross country, etc. he was pretty amazing. He not only coached basketball and baseball, but he also did track, cross country. So he was an all-around coach, really a great man, and brought a lot of credit to our school district. And so it would be nice, and what they're really asking is simply that his name be placed on the floor of the court on each end of it. It would be saying, G. Warren Pius, Coach G. Warren Pius Court. Next.
I received
Would it
that.
have to be on the court, Rev, or could it be on the wall?
No, of course.
Well, they have said before, I think the whole idea is that they want recognition of his achievement and what he's offered to the school district. So I don't know that anybody would argue about it, but they said when they talked to me, and this was like Ron Woods and, I won't even bother the name all, but several that came to me, they simply said that the court would be named and have his name on it. So they talked in terms of it on the floor, but I guess if it was done, it wouldn't make that much difference.
Yeah, the standard, there's a pretty standard practice around the courts, naming the court itself as opposed to the building. It's always the Cape Walden Court within the court. I think if this were something the board, I received that today from Mr. Michael. I know we've had this discussion before. I'm going to do, work with Rich Silverstein and do some research. I'm going to expect to bring that to my agenda meeting with Ms. Lau and Mr. Shaughnessy at our next meeting, to then decide to put it on resolution and let the board make a decision at that point. And if that were the case, I think my preference would be that it would be on the court itself. And I know exactly the way the committee that was talking about this, and a lot of our Hall of Fame committee have been people talking about this. I think I have a pretty good idea what their vision is, and that would be, again, something I think we bring to the board next meeting or the meeting after that, and let the board make a decision.
I read the document that Mr. Michael sent to us this morning. It was from Mr. Glenn Mach, our previous.
I think he certainly meets the qualifications that we talked about. He's a long-time dedicated employee, and I think it's perfectly legitimate, Rev, for you to bring a resolution to the board for that. I would support it, certainly.
We will develop the resolution.
Run with the meeting.
Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of it. I would like to, I wouldn't want to do it today. I would want the community to know that we are considering it, and
in situations like this, I like to develop a proper resolution, not just a typical resolution that would be in our consent agenda. A more proper resolution that would be both official and ceremonial, and be able to read and have the board president read it to the community, and it would be a much different feeling than as part of our consent agenda. But yes, so we're working on it. Yes.
Well, I agree with that. I think that's a good direction to go in.
yeah, having read that document, it seems he certainly deserves that consideration. Okay, any other old business? New business, we have two resolutions on the agenda for new business. One of them is BOE 60, which is the election of BOCES board members. We're able to do this today because of a exemption that we've been given. Normally it would be done at the next meeting, but we're allowed to do this. So there's a resolution. I don't want to read the whole resolution, but there are 4 seats vacant, or 4 seats. One is vacant, and 3 board members are reaching the end of their 3-year term. One of the stipulations, or one of the obligations of on BOCES is there has to be at least one member from each component district in the BOCES, in the BOCES at large. So we have 8 board members, eight component districts. Saugerties has seat number 1 is Ellenville. That seat is vacant right now, and they didn't nominate anybody for it, and so that would have to be filled by someone from Ellenville, from the Ellenville School District. Seat number 2 is Saugerties, and Krista Behringer is a present board member, and she's been nominated for the seat by the Saugerties Board of Education. Seat number 3 is at large, and it's currently held by Christopher Farrell, a former board member of the Kingston City School District, and currently president of the BOCES Board of Education. And he's been nominated, I believe we nominated him for that seat a few meetings ago. And there's another at-large district, at-large seat, Donald Green, who is from Wallkill, and he was nominated again by the Wallkill School District for this at-large seat. This would be his, I think he's completing his 10th term. So he first came on the board, on the BOCES School Board in 1987, I believe. And he's very healthy and wants to continue. So I have a motion that we would vote for these 3 candidates for the BOCES School Board.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Thank you to them.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Unanimously adopted. The second resolution is the adoption of the administrative budget for BOCES. I'll read parts of this resolution. Whereas the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Kingston, in accordance with education law, must adopt a resolution either approving or disapproving the BOCES administrative budget. And whereas a vote on such approval or disapproval has been scheduled for the date of April 22nd, 2020, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Kingston, New York, approve the 2021 looks like Ulster County Board of Cooperative Educational Services administrative budget in the amount of $6,625,298. And this is an increase of approximately $280,000 over last year's budget, and most of that is post-retirement benefit costs that have risen by that amount. The impact on the Kingston City School District would be $1,961,688, and that's calculated as Kingston having 30% of the total BOCES resident weighted daily average attendance, and is responsible for its proportional share of the administrative budget, less revenues of $165,000, yielding a net amount of $6,460,298. The 2019-2020 share for Kingston was $1,827,188, based on the average weighted attendance of 30%. Can I have a motion to consider BOE 61?
So moved.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on it?
Jim,
Yes.
is there any disadvantage of approving this before we know what our budget is going to be and what kind of dire straits we're going to be in?
Can I answer that?
Yes, Dr. Padalino.
We always, the budget for BOCES is always due prior to our budget. So we are frequently in this situation to vote on approving the BOCES budget before we have our budget, approved by the Board of Education. So it's not an unusual event. I will say the BOCES has kept their administrative budget as lean as they possibly can. This is a good budget, and I think that they've they're being responsible. There's not much we can do with this other than to move it forward, and we have it as part of, it's inclusive in what we do, and really, giving the services for our students that come through BOCES. This is money well spent.
Thank you.
This is just for the administrative
This is
budget.
just the administrative
For
budget.
every class that a Kingston student participates in, there's a COSER, essentially a tuition charge for that student, and that's how BOCES makes the pays their teachers and other instructional staff.
But the administration budget encompasses much more than, I think people think administration, they think administrators. The administrative budget encompasses much more than that, as far as it's the money that they use to actually function as an organization outside of their teachers.
Right. Okay, if no other questions or comments, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of adopting BOE 61, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Unanimously adopted. Board member announcements? Oh, unless there's any other new business. I'm sorry, I should have asked if there was any other new business. No other new business? Board member announcements? Mrs. Jordan?
I just wanted to also echo the comments that you and Dr. Catalino made, Mr. Shaughnessy, regarding so many of our staff members who are working their tails off, trying to meet the needs of their kids, while they're also, many of them, trying to meet the needs of their own children. And I think that it's harder to teach in your own home when you're also teaching the class. And I really want to recognize their efforts and just hope that this comes to a conclusion. And I kind of feel that there have been some positive things that have happened in that some of the skills that the teachers are now developing, I hope that they'll be able to utilize when they go back to a traditional classroom to enhance what they've already done. So thank you to all, and thank you to the administration.
Yes.
I also wanted to weigh in on that, to think again, the administrative staff and the faculty, the maintenance workers, the food prep workers, everybody who's making it possible for education and meals to carry on during the pandemic. And last but not least, the parents, because we know, as Mrs. Jordan has said, and anybody who's spoken about it has indicated, it's very difficult to be at home, trying to work from home, many of them, and also assist your children who are students with their work online. So thank you to everybody, and I hope this isn't too much longer that we're in this, but we're in it together, and thank you.
Okay.
And I'd like to just say ditto to all of that. It's been really amazing to see what has been done in such a short time with such expertise, and it really speaks highly of our staff and all those that make education work here in this community. So we're appreciative of all that great work.
Anyone else? So I overlooked one item for new business, if I could go back to that. It's nomination of Ulster County School Board Association officers. They asked to have that done by April 15th. There are 3 positions that are elected, and the current officers have indicated a willingness to go forward in another term, and that would be President Rob Kernet, who is a member of the Ontario Central School District Board Vice President. The Vice President of the Ulster County School Boards Association is Krista Behringer, and she's a Saugerties board member and a BOCES board member. And Recording Secretary is Robin Jacobowitz, proudly of our Kingston City School District board member. So I would move that we nominate these 3 individuals for another term as Ulster County School Board Association president, officers. Is there a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, everybody. I'll keep taking minutes.
Yes, you do a great job. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Say nay. Unanimously nominated. And we'll forward this to Shyla Beck, who is the administrative person for the Ulster County School Boards Association. No other board member announcements. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Nobody wants to go home.
Yes, yeah, safe travel home, everybody. Don't trip on a rug or anything. All in favor, please say aye. So before we do this, just so when we adjourn, please make sure you disconnect from the meeting with that little red phone that you'll find on your screen. Just click that and you'll be disconnected from the meeting. And as soon as we adjourn, Karen Siri will shut off the video feed. So, had a motion to adjourn, I think? We did the motion, right? So, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Unanimously. We'll
Stay well, everybody.
yes.
Happy holiday. Happy Easter to all.
Yes, so our next board meeting will be April 22nd, if it's as scheduled, and we'll be doing this Teams again. I'm sure it'll be much easier, and I hope it's much easier. And you